Hey guys, welcome back to the BuzWeaver channel for this Saturday. I know it's a Saturday. However, we have some very important and pivotal news to cover here concerning the raid on Mar-a-Lago. Because if you guys are returning viewers, you know all about the fact that here on the BuzWeaver channel, we take the difficult, we take the complicated, the chaos, the tumult, the confusion, and we make it as simple as possible. Now, for you guys who are pressed for time and can't stay through the whole video, let me go ahead and conclude it by saying this. The raid on Mar-a-Lago was a nothing burger. Thank you guys. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And those of you who are still here, we're going to talk about this because if you are a regular viewer here on the channel, you guys know, and as I covered on Friday, the 39 years of lawsuits and investigations and bureaus and confirmation hearings that President Trump has had to endure. And so what we have here, and this is just going to be my opinion, and then we'll go into some more details, is that the media and the Democrats just needed some sort of distraction to garner some attention. It's almost like this was all a clickbait, a high-level, government-level clickbait. Because as we're going to go over here as quickly as I can, it'll be very generalized. I know I can't go like super specific. I just want to generalize what's going on here. And so we start off from the Daily Mail. I don't think he knew what was in those boxes. Bill Maher slams FBI's Trump raid and claims it has saved him politically from losing to Governor DeSantis because it will make him president martyr. But the thing here is DeSantis has already said he's not running for president if President Trump is going to run. So not only in their misinformation and disinformation and misdirection and sensationalizing, they're still under the impression that DeSantis is going to run in place of Trump. Because as I've always told you, the litmus test of knowing what the Democrats want is when they say that the only person that could win against Trump or someone who would be presidential material like DeSantis, that goes to show you they feel that they can manipulate and or control or play ball with DeSantis. And that's why they want him as a potential campaign individual for president. And here you just kind of see some of the highlights and pictures, and they're just going over the jibber-jabber back and forth of conversation. And we see some regular tweets now as this starts to settle in, as people on the left start to realize how much of this is a nothing burger. And I know that's a very generalized, very biased statement on my part to say to kind of tamp everything down. But in reality, when we get into it, you're going to see how it really is more of a leveraging point for these people, or the left and the Democrats and, you know, of course, Trump detractors in the deep state or the establishment. He was done. Why Democrats weaponize the DOJ to try and put the final nail in the coffin is beyond me. Classic stupidity. They've just reloaded his ammo and gave him a rally cry beyond dumb. It's very interesting, isn't it, to see the differences in mindset here. Because the Democrats, the left, the Trump detractors, already work from a position that he is guilty, he's a terrible person, orange man bad, he'll never win again. People would have to be absolutely ridiculous and dumb and stupid and delusional, as a commenter called me the other day, to be able to believe that President Trump would be an appropriate president. And all I have to say to these people is, have you not been paying attention to what's been going on here in our country and in the world? Since Biden was the appointed establishment president, are you guys missing the gas prices and the tax hikes and everything that's going on, the shutdown of our energy independence and production? And are you not paying attention? So basically, this is just some of the outcry from Bill Maher, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because these aren't the things that we would typically talk about here on the channel, like what the particular specifics are from the left and the Democrats in their line of thinking, because we already know DeSantis has said that he was not going to run if Trump was going to run. So they're still playing these other games. And what this gentleman down here said, or individual, I don't know who they are, so I don't want to misidentify, you know, basically said the same thing, you know, that Trump was already done. Really? Trump was already done? He couldn't be any more popular right now. But they are right that this all caused a huge, as I say, my friends up in New York say, a huge problem for them. So, and part of this problem, of course, was that Merrick Garland had to come out and nervously and skittishly give some very pandering type outline. Trump calls for release of warrant document used in search. This is very funny to me because I did spend several years in law, so it's kind of interesting to see how the media and Trump detractors, or just the media and the Democrats, working from a position that people are too dumb, too stupid to know or understand that there are individuals, and I was not an attorney, I am not a paralegal, I was a humble legal assistant, but I was around, I was there, I could see what was happening, I could see how our system works, I could see how the attorneys argued, I could see how the filings are done, I could see all of that because I was there. And this is why I say, from my position as a humble legal assistant, that the Democrats, when they say these things, is absolutely ridiculous. Let me give you an example. They were saying that Trump should release the information on the warrant to prove that he is not guilty, even though they knew it was sealed, and Trump couldn't do it. And Eric Trump specifically said that they would not allow his attorney or Trump's attorneys or anyone even to be in the House or anyone to even review the warrant, even shutting down the cameras. They were instructed to shut down all the cameras and surveillance devices and everything that was in the House so the FBI could conduct this. And this is ridiculous that they would try to tell the American people, try to make the American people believe that in this process that people who may have worked in law, who are attorneys, who are constitutional scholars and stuff, wouldn't be able to realize that this is all nonsense. This is ridiculous what you guys are doing. This is just dumb. What are you guys doing? But they're not coming out and saying anything, of course, because the deep state being the deep state and the establishment being the establishment and the Democrats being the Democrats, they will go after those individuals who try to point out, you guys are doing some really dumb stuff. Former President Donald Trump said he supported the release of documents related to the FBI search of his Mar-a-Lago home earlier this week, including a copy of the search warrant and a receipt of items that agents took from the property. I can assure you that when we take a look at this warrant, I can tell you that his team, his staff of attorneys, his professionals, his handlers, all these people that are around him are going to review all these documents before he takes it from the White House to his home. They're going to go through all this because it's a procedure. It's a process that has to be done. And it's also important to note here that presidents can declassify documents, which is going to be another sticking point because like the Democrats tried to say, they were trying to say, oh, well, Trump should release the warrant, knowing that it was sealed and it couldn't be done, so it was a conundrum. And the other conundrum is this. Merrick Garland comes out and says, or basically what would happen if this were to go to court or to be reviewed, they would say, well, we can't disclose the classified information that President Trump had, even though it was declassified because it's classified. So another conundrum. So they know that the information and documents that they're saying were classified, top secret, this sort of thing like that, if it were to come up in a discussion in court, they still could not mention it because it's classified, yet it's declassified. So these are just stupid legal maneuvers that these individuals are engaged in. It's absolutely dumb. Trump's decision to agree to release the search warrant, something he has had the option of doing on his own since the search took place. No, he couldn't. It was sealed. Heads off a public showdown between the former president's legal team and Attorney General Merrick Garland. Ridiculous. See, no, the mainstream media is pitting people against Garland and Trump. And the mainstream media is pitting Americans against other Americans. By dividing our country clearly and definitively, CRT is a perfect example of them literally dividing the country and identifying people by skin color, ethnicity, racial backgrounds, so forth and so on. So the people who are dividing the country, just take a look. You can see it. Federal agents searched Trump's Florida residence as part of an investigation into whether the former president was unlawfully holding onto presidential records that were supposed to go to the National Archives once he left office, including potentially classified materials, according to people familiar with the matter. Who? Here we go again, guys, with the people familiar with the matter. Really, who are they? I mean, I could say I know people that are familiar with the matter. I'm familiar with certain legal matters. I'm not a professional. I'm not an expert, but I was there. I know how the process works. And this is the Democrats and the establishment assuming that people are too stupid to figure this out on their own or look it up or determine it. And then, of course, as we found out on Friday, before President Trump, just before President Trump, Thursday night on Friday, before President Trump released the actual warrant, they were saying it was nuclear information, right? It was nuclear information all of a sudden. Nuclear information that Trump had and this, that, and the other. So it shifted. Really, why did it shift from National Archive information to now nuclear information? Well, because nuclear codes, and it, of course, is going to get a rise out of people, particularly with what's going on in Europe. And, of course, just recently, New York had their a nuclear weapon drill. So nuclear weapons is what they moved from when it went from when it went from classified documents and so forth and so on. It's absolutely ridiculous. So here we are. From JAX in Florida. I assume this is from Jacksonville. See it. Mar-a-Lago search warrant documents unsealed by judge. That's right. It's unsealed now, much to the chagrin of the left and the mainstream media. They are angry that it was unsealed because they were using the fact that it was sealed as their leverage to say, see, President Trump's guilty because he won't release the warrant when he couldn't do it. Just like his taxes. He can't just release the taxes that are under audit. He can't release them. So they kept saying it over and over again. Remember? He needs to release his taxes. He couldn't release his taxes, you freaking morons. He can't release them. So court papers show that the FBI recovered several documents that he labeled top secret. Attorney General Merrick Garland declared on Thursday that there is substantial public interest in this matter. Oh, yes, absolutely. The Democrats, the Trump detractors, mainstream media, Hollywood, all the entertainment industries and activists, absolutely they're interested in this matter because they want to play it out and get the distraction, get the clicks, get the cloud painted back over President Trump's head. Now, when I worked in law, these are very similar to the documents that I would have to go and retrieve from the federal court or from the National Archives. I'd be sent out to go and retrieve these sorts of documents for copies for cases and other things that were going on. So going through it, it's very generic. It's only 7 pages, so it's really not that in-depth. I'm going to leave a link down here below if you guys want to look at it yourselves, but I'm just going to say, just from my very low-level involvement in law as a humble legal assistant, that I can look at this as someone who used to pull these documents and attachments and motions and so forth, that this is a nothing burger. But again, I am not a legal expert, so I'm sure an attorney or someone else could come along and say, well, actually. But anyway, nonetheless, to say, any physical documents with classified markings along with any containers boxes, very tiny, guys. You can barely see it from where I'm sitting here. Information including communications of any form regarding, and see, very, very, very generic, very, very general information. Now, the mainstream media did redact a lot of this information, which also, well, not the redaction itself didn't set off the left or the mainstream media. It set off the left because, as you can see here, received from and printed name titles. These are the agents and so forth that received the information and so forth. They're like, oh my God, the people are going to be able to, people will be able to know where they live. Well, they went after Supreme Court justices after the leak about the abortion. Remember that? Right. So you see here, this is like an itemization, a receipt of property or receipt for property. So you have executive grant of clemency for Roger Stone. Of course, he gave clemency to Roger Stone, which was in itself a whole other issue, which is why they then went after Roger Stone, if for no other reason to embarrass him, because, of course, they had this information here. President of France, that's Macron, which is very interesting, right? Because most things that presidents do, and you'll kind of understand this here when you see these handwritten notes, most anything that a president does is classified. However, for him to be able to communicate with foreign leaders, the media, whomever, historians, documentarians, whoever he's speaking with, he's got to at least have the capacity to go over things with other people. So he has that as the commander-in-chief, that executive privilege to declassify things. And you see here, various declassified TS and SCI documents, those being top secret and sensitive compartmented information. I can leave this down there if you want to know what these particular specifics are, clearance levels, your clearance status, and all these sorts of things that people may want to, dive into if they want to. And you can see binders and photos, handwritten notes, because as I said, anything the president writes down or engages in it is and can be considered classified. And then your box labels, which are typical. And this is why I'm saying to you guys that these box labeled, this is very, very, very specific, which means that to me, as someone who worked in law, I'm not a legal professional who worked in law and saw this type of process, that these documents and boxes typically had one or several people go through them to make sure that everything was on the up and up. Particularly as it pertains to Donald Trump, who, as I covered on Friday, has been pursued legally for 39 years. So the specificity here is very important and tells me, as someone who worked in law, I was not a legal professional. I know I keep saying that because because I have to be very careful how I say it, because I wasn't a legal professional. I just worked in law and had privy to this type of information, and was privy to this type of information, I should say. So I can tell you that when these documents are labeled this specifically, there are people that went through those documents, signed off on the documents. There's probably labels on the boxes of who went through the documents, what was, who went through them, who reviewed the documentation. So that's all going to be on the boxes themselves. Box label A28, miscellaneous secret documents. So that's very generic. And then, of course, the various labelings of the boxes. So, again, I'm just going to reemphasize that those boxes probably have lines on them that dictate the, release of custody, who received them, and where they're going to be stored. All this sort of information is very specific. So, as I said in the very beginning of the video, this is and will end up being a complete nothing burger. This was just to paint yet another dark cloud over President Trump and to, well, it's not going to stop him from running for 2024 now, because now that the warrant has been released and we kind of see what's going on, and Merrick Garland had to come out and nervously, sheepishly pander to everybody about what actually happened. This was, to me, an extraordinarily big and ridiculous clickbait distraction. I mean, something along the levels that you would find maybe from a fellow YouTube content creator or someone on Instagram trying to get those clicks. And I don't mean that to be disparaging or derisive here, because obviously I'm doing my videos and I don't always go for like the clickbaity type things, although, I do label things a certain way. But nonetheless, guys, that's what I have for you on this Saturday. Thank you for your guys' continued support, the likes, the shares, and the comments, all of you guys on alternative tech or new tech. That would be those of you following me on DTube, BitChute, Rumble, and Odyssey. Thank you guys so very much. As you see there on the screen, that would be the channel icon appearing right there. You guys can click on that to subscribe, as well as to click notifications. That way you know there's content here on the channel. And I'll see you guys in the next video.